Hey guys, Dabu7, earthquake update. We have had a 5.1, what is listed here on the global incident map, hitting in Southern California, a very shallow quake. We also have some activity here around the New Madrid. We'll take a look at the map here. And you can see here some of the latest activity, including this Southern California earthquake. Now, what is very interesting about this is that it seems to be out in an area away from all the major cities, literally right in the middle of nowhere out here in the mountain ranges. And the pattern has caught my attention as well. Check this out. I've seen a lot of swarms, and when you see the swarms, they are often all over the place. There's really no pattern. But boy, I tell you what, if I've ever seen a pattern, there's one here. The way that these are hitting almost makes it seem like there's something underground setting these off. I mean, the lines, if you look, they run parallel to one another. All these quakes, they're in line for the most part here. Going this way, going this way, going this way, going this way. What's causing it? It's yet to be seen, but I'll say this much. A lot of people felt it. They said that it felt like the earth was liquefied, the ground that they were standing on. And I've just discovered some deception coming from USGS, which doesn't surprise me and should not surprise many of you out there. They downgrade quakes all the time. You'll notice that their 7-pointers and 7.1s are always downgraded to 6.9s, or 6-pointers down to 5.9s. And it shows obvious when you go and you look at their backlog of all the earthquakes, and they even manipulate that. But look what they did. They listed that this was at 12.3 kilometers, around a normal depth, as you can see here, matching the other ones. But there's a problem. That's not what was initially recorded. You wonder why people felt this all over the place? This 5.2 registered a negative 1.4 kilometers initially. Normally, when these quakes hit, the kilometers in the distance in depth never changes, hardly ever. Sometimes they'll adjust the magnitude. Hardly ever do I see the depth ever get changed. So what happened here? Well, it looks to me as if the sensors picked up a ground level event. Maybe even above ground, seeming that it's negative 1.4. And what clarifies this to me that it was a very shallow quake is if you go over here and look at the other maps, you'll see in Southern California, for this 5.1, they have it listed at 1. It is the shallowest quake they have on the map, followed by a 2, which is where? Southern California, part of the same swarm. Now, there was one actually in Tonga that was at ground level, but there was no cities or anything around. It was a 5.5. But as far as what's happening here in the United States, this pattern is very odd. Okay? Out in the middle of nowhere here, it seems to me as if there's something going on. I'm not sure if it's underground. I'm not sure if there's a military facility out here. These are things we need to get to the bottom of and figure out quick. If anyone knows this neck of the woods here, southeast of the Santa Rosa Reservation off 371, these mountain ranges, let me know. It would be good to know the terrain, if there's any installations associated with anything out here. You can see Coachella, Palm Desert, Mecca, all that right there. Cleveland National Forest, Oak Grove. This sits right smack dab in the middle, out in the mountains, of all places. And the pattern has really got me wondering what's going on here. The pattern, the deception on the depth by USGS, all of it is raising questions with me. The swarm continues very shallow. I could almost bet that if somebody went out here in this area within the next few hours and was right here where these swarms are popping off, that you're going to feel some of these 2s and 3s, without a doubt. You're not going to feel them all the way out in Los Angeles, but they sure did feel that 5-pointer, 5.1, 5.2, what it registered. Now, we also just witnessed the biggest quake of the day here recently, 6.4 down here near the coast of Nicaragua. This swarm was a decent swarm in size, hitting on mainland. Fairly shallow, nothing like what we just saw in the California quake. We just saw a 3.7 strike on the western flank, the outskirts of Yellowstone National Park. Mary Greeley did a video on that yesterday. 3.7 striking right up in here. And New Madrid is showing some life. And I say this because, man, for years I've been covering the quakes. I've been watching the patterns on a daily basis. And within the past month, I've seen more small earthquakes strike Tennessee and Kentucky than I ever have. Now, they're not being reported. Many people not noticing them because they're smaller quakes. But the 3.7 that struck right up here on this ridge, here within the past 2 or 3 weeks, was an eye-opener for me. 3.7 striking in this area. Then another one hit down here. Another one hit out here. And just a couple days ago, there was one that struck a 3. I'm not sure what it was, a 3.1, maybe 3.7, that had struck down here in Tennessee, very near this exact same spot in the Lake region. Now, the layout and the landscape of the land here could have something to do with how destructive these earthquakes can be that are generated from the New Madrid. The keyhole itself here is very unique. It is basically a peninsula that comes out here, kind of like a land island, if you will. And I call it that because it is the only land island of Kentucky that does not touch Kentucky. It's very unique in nature because it is Kentucky surrounded by a river. And as you can see, Missouri tucks all the way down in here. Missouri dips down, which you would think they would just have made this Kentucky here. They don't. Missouri dips down into Tennessee, slicing right through Kentucky here. And then Tennessee bottlenecks up right here. Missouri all the way around through here. And this little island of Kentucky right there. And that is where your New Madrid sits. Like I said, this recent activity striking right here on the waterway. You see how it snakes back and forth, all this tension. You have all that water weight that works its way down the Mississippi, shifting back and forth. And the New Madrid, as most of you should know, long overdue for a big quake. So to see activity here isn't surprising. And I guess it wouldn't be too surprising if a big one hit to see that many people were not prepared. I can't stress it enough. Have a plan. Folks even over in Poplar Bluff have seen their swarms in the past, all the way down here in Arkansas, but we've had none of that as of recently. A lot of the smaller quakes situated right here from Tennessee up to Kentucky into Missouri, right along that New Madrid. Now, the depth on these, shallow, but nowhere near as shallow as the ones we just saw out in California. But I wanted to make note of this recent activity here. Right on the heels here of the Cascadia Rising event in Pacific Northwest. It's been fairly quiet up here as well. Juan de Fuca, there was a 5-pointer within the past couple weeks that released a little bit of energy. But Pacific Northwest all the way up to Vancouver Islands, British Columbia, this area used to see big quakes. Even Alaska had big quakes up in here a couple years ago. Just has died off to smaller quakes all the way down to Cleveland volcano, the activity we saw there. Right now, pretty quiet. And when it gets quiet, you want to pay attention to spots that normally see activity. Chile, one of those. This area has the capability of generating large quakes that can cause a lot of destruction. And normally this area is swarming, kind of like Puerto Rico, Southern California. We're not seeing that now. When this area gets quiet, this pinch point and things like that, that's when you want to pay attention, because that's when it's building up the energy. And it seems like as soon as they go quiet for a day or two, few days, that's when a big one hits. May not be a 7, 8, definitely will be in the 6 range, right around there. And just hope that it doesn't cause a lot of destruction and damage. So that is a look at some recent quake activity. I would not doubt it if we've seen some quake activity between Nicaragua and Southern California, through the Gulf of California, even Mexico here, within the next 48 hours. But that's a look at the earthquakes globally, guys. I'll continue to update with more information as I come across it, but let it be known, USGS out here being deceptive. Ground level quake hits California. And that's just not right.